Hello, Patreons, and welcome to the entire Secret Friends Unite community that is experiencing this as a Secret Friends Unite special, both here and on our YouTube, after Patreons get their hands on it. But this is a little show that we call The Facts of Geek Life, and it is a show that is drawing to a conclusion. I am Charlie Carden, as I'm sure you know if you're a regular listener, and I am joined by my XO, my number one space guy, Peter Stein. Peter, hello.
Hello.
And yeah, we are wrapping up, and it's funny because I just watched this series finale again yesterday for the umpteenth time, but it'd been maybe a year or two since I've seen it. What I consider to be one of the finest television programs ever made. Now, of course, that's just my opinion, and I'm just a guy. But I'm talking about Ronald D. Moore's reimagining of the 1970s series Battlestar Galactica. Great show that ran from 2003 through 2009, and gave us the kind of the highs and the lows of space, mythology, survival, the human race.
Yeah.
More things than I can describe. Just an absolute ton of stuff. So yeah, we're going to go through this and we're going to talk about the finale. It aired in 3 parts. The first part aired as a standalone, and then the finale aired as a 90-minute double episode, if you would. But the way that I watched it was actually in on the disc version of it, because it was an extended edition. So I didn't watch it. I didn't watch the streaming just since the beginning of 2026, or here in 2026, which is when we're releasing this, which is in August of 2026. It is available on Paramount Plus, which is weird because it's Universal, and I don't know why it would not be on Peacock, but whatever. I'm not going to argue. Paramount Plus, I have the deluxe version, so there's no commercials. So I can watch it normally. And then Peter, I know you have it on a server, but you originally ripped from disc.
I have Blu-rays and DVDs. So
Gotcha.
I have 2 copies of this thing.
Gotcha. And I also and then I also have 2 copies because my other is a purchase from Fandango at home, which was Vudu, or just Fandango if you prefer, but also Apple TV, Amazon Prime, etc. But much like Peter, I would say buy the disc. This is one of those. It's funny because my studio is half torn up right now. You're seeing one angle of it, but the other angle of it is I kind of have some of my action figure shelves torn up, and I have DVD cases that I want to put away because there are still some discs that I'll always save. I have the early seasons of The Simpsons, for example, because there's certain episodes that if it got yanked in syndication, like the Michael Jackson episode, they made go away. But I have the disc, so I'll always have it. But and physical media is making a comeback of sorts. So anyway, not to get too far afield. So yeah, buy the disc. It's available, I would say, relatively cheaply if you go out there on Amazon, or even at by this point, since the Blu-ray was released in the 20 teens, you're going to find it in secondhand shops that you probably find a little bit better price. It's worth owning. I'm going to absolutely stress to you that it's worth owning. Now, this is not the end of us talking about the show, because we have 2 TV films to talk about. In the coming couple of months, we're going to talk about a film called The Plan, which is the first 2 seasons of the show discussed from the Cylon point of view. Peter has not seen it, which is very exciting.
And I've held off until we're getting to the point to see it, so that my take is fresh.
Yes, and then the final part of it was a backdoor pilot that did not take off, that actually aired as webisodes in 2012 called Battlestar Galactica Blood and Chrome, and it's the story of a young Bill Adama during the first Cylon War and an adventure he had there, which I thought was really quite good, but apparently nobody really agreed with me. But all right, let's get into talking about Daybreak, parts 1, 2, and 3. Or I'll simply just call it Daybreak. So we're going to do this by talking about part 1 as separate, and then parts 2 and 3 as a single entity. Part 1 aired on March 13th of 2009. Our survivor count, 39,516. Directed by Michael Reimer and written by the incomparable, my bucket list interview that I really want to get this guy someday, Ronald D. Moore, a personal hero of mine in the writing and television world. Yeah. A series of pre-Cylon attack flashbacks delve into past situation of Caprica 6 involvement in caring for Baltar's elderly father, Rosalind's sudden loss for family in an accident, and Lee Adama's passionate feelings about Starbuck, who is dating his brother Zach, which take us back probably somewhere between 3 and 5 years before the miniseries. That'd be my guess.
Ish, yeah.
Was that the vibe you got? Maybe 2 to 5 years, two or 3 years.
For some of them, it almost felt like a couple months, but it was unclear to me.
Right. Yeah. Well, we know that Zach died a year or so before the finale.
Yep. It was more I wasn't sure on Rosalind. Like
Right.
the other ones are at least a year and a half, but Rosalind
Yeah.
I couldn't
But
tell.
she said, yeah, because at the end of her, she says, well, I'll join Adar's campaign. And you get the feeling that Adar had been a president for a couple of years
Yeah.
at
So
that
maybe about
point.
maybe 2, 3 years
Yeah,
beforehand.
that's why I put it so. In the present, Anders reveals the location of Kerbal Space, and Adama decides to take Galactica on one final mission to rescue Hera. So
Oh,
my first line is get ready for some genuine effing emotion as we go through all this.
it's
I'm
is
gonna try to keep the effing and Jeffing to a minimum since we're cross promoting here. But I went through an absolute wide gauntlet of feelings watching all of this. Simply put, some of the finest hours of television that I've ever watched is this finale. And it's weird because there are people who really hate it. I mean, Peter, I'm sure you've done much reading the same as I have. There are people who are really down on this finale. They didn't like what they felt was a gotcha at the very end, which obviously we'll get there. But
I have some mixed feelings about the very end of it.
okay.
I will say that. But
We will get there. As I had mentioned, watch this on Blu-ray disc extended edition.
yeah.
I will say that based on the time that it came out, the menus are pretty obnoxious. The navigation sucks, and you get used to not having to deal with that kind of stuff when you own something digitally or you stream it, going through all the different menus. And I bought a 4K Blu-ray player maybe 2 years ago that I absolutely hate it, and it was the best price I could find, and I'm not going to replace it again because I'm like, how many times I use it? Like 5 times a year. It's ridiculous. I don't watch discs. I still have discs, but
Yeah.
I use the one in my office more often just to throw a disc in there while I'm working, and it's off to my right side, and it's more of an audio thing. I mean, I also use it to play CDs because that's the value of it. You know what I mean? But yeah, I would say accept no substitutes. I don't know that the quality is worse if you're watching it streaming or potentially.
For Battlestar particularly, no, it's not going to be different. It hasn't had like a 4K remaster, so the Blu-ray is going
Yeah,
to be the best that you get. And to be fair, the show was filmed. For those who don't know, the show was filmed deliberately to have sort of a military found footage grain on the front
right,
of it. So sometimes even scrubbing it doesn't make it look better because it's
right.
got that grain on it on purpose.
Right.
So,
As opposed to 90s Star Trek, which they haven't remastered, which just looks like crap because they've never
well,
updated it.
that's just not doing it on. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a different reason.
Yeah, exactly. That's the bird of a different feather. So I love these flashbacks. Great perspective. The whole thing with Bill, and he's taking a civilian job, but he's got to take a lie detector test, which they kind of follow us all the way. It follows all the way through parts 1, 2, and 3.
Most of these flashbacks kind of appear sporadically through all 3 parts of the
Right. Which I think is great. But we kick off with Laura wrapping up hosting a baby shower for she has 2 younger sisters, her middle sister, who is the one who's having the baby, and then she has a early 20-something sisters, and they're laughing and drinking champagne and stuff. And I did love the line because Laura's chuckling and she says, what was the deal with that woman with Mrs. Anderson, and why did she bring those? I just have to know what that's
what were
supposed to mean.
those?
Yeah. The big fake boobs? I don't know. Was she supposed to leave them in the car? What does that mean? Dogs? Oh, it was like some kind of pet?
Dogs,
It was funny.
Earrings that were, in poor taste.
Yeah, exactly.
Know.
Giant penises. I don't know. So it's like, no, this isn't a bridal shower. This is a baby shower.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. So I wrote Kara first meeting Lee already being a terrible girlfriend.
That was just
like all the flirting.
When I say it's rough, I don't mean acting or
never. No,
anything.
Katie is such a pro.
No, it's masterfully done, but you're just watching, you're like, Kara, oh my gosh, why?
She just reinforces the fact that this is never anyone that you would want to date, and certainly not anyone you want to be married to.
Yeah.
You can trust her about as far as you can. Yeah, she's practically all over Lee, and of course that continues to
loyalty is something that Kara is not particularly familiar with when it comes to relationship.
Yeah, she's kind of a jingly keys kind of girlfriend. Another guy starts paying her attention. She's like, trust me, I've had girlfriends like that. It ain't great.
Yeah. We do get a little bit of her being a little bit more sticking to it.
Yeah.
In these 3 episodes in the
Yeah.
present, particularly with Anders.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I like it. Seeing Zach and Lee together is sad too, because this is the first time we see those brothers together. Because it's been the first time
Yeah,
that we've had a flashback that touches the two of them
it's
together.
the
So
first time we've seen Zach live, other than
yeah.
like a photo.
And I said, why are all of these so sad, except for the one with Baltar's dad, who is obviously he's suffering from dementia, or maybe he's just a huge asshole. I'm not sure.
I
Pardon,
think
pardon my
it might
French.
be some combination thereof.
But yeah, he takes care of his elderly father, who he keeps in an apartment, who routinely stabs his live-in nurses and stuff, and it's all but it creates a situation where Caprica 6, who is obviously undercover as a Cylon skin job, is able to insinuate herself into a situation where she proves her value to Baltar by making the problem of his father having a place to live, by getting him into this great assisted living place. And yeah, so
Mhm.
very masterful,
Yeah,
how she executes him on that. But yeah, what a creep. Oh my God, it was
yeah,
bad.
ugh, yeah. Oh,
So speaking of the flashback scenes, and you were saying, well, the one with Katie, it was great, it was really well acted. I really feel like the scene where the two cops come to Laura's doorstep and deliver the news that her father and two sisters died in a car crash was really stiff. Like, I found it especially
yeah,
stiff. Yeah, it was
yeah,
like,
that
well, your father and your two sisters, and we're so sorry for your loss. And
I
she's
mean,
like, well, you guys can leave now.
yeah,
It was like,
here's the thing. It's stiff, but it's not unrealistically so.
I suppose so.
Because at
Yeah,
least my understanding of how those sorts of things tend to go is very similar to that. Because like the police officer or EMT or whoever is making the report, like it happens with military too, where like a major goes out there and says whatever.
right.
It's like they don't know you. They have to deliver this really hard news, and they want to be empathetic, but it's like
They don't want to put it
uh,
over the top.
they don't want to put it over the top. And it's like I don't know how you're gonna handle it. I need to watch out in case you're gonna get violent. And so
Right.
it's just like
That's a good point.
it's just this whole like they don't know what's going on sort of thing.
Yeah.
So like so like I get what you're saying, but I think that may have been on purpose.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, so much of the show was purposeful in ways that, even like I said, I'm watching this for maybe the seventh or eighth time, or even maybe more. Because again, this came out in 2009, which, let's face it, with it's going on 20 years, we're almost to that point.
Yep.
I know, but it's like the transition, because Laura kind of has like a freak out. She wanders out of her apartment. She wanders into the square in a fountain, and she just jumps in it and is just sitting there letting the water fall on her. And people are looking at her like, "What the hell is going on?"
Yeah, I saw
And
that
then,
happen. I was like, that is something that I've always wanted to do in a way because it's kind of interesting, but at the
but it
same
just
time,
makes
it's
you
like
look like you're nuts.
you just look insane.
Yeah, exactly. But it transitions. But you see the water, and then it transitions to the IV dripping, and we're back present day, and she's laying there, absolutely wilting away in a bed in Galactus sick bay. And I have to say again, the way that they make, uh, why can't I remember the actress's name? It's on the tip of my tongue.
Mary
Mary
McDowell.
McDowell look like she is already dead throughout all of this is incredible.
Yeah.
Especially since they jump back and then they have visuals of her in the past where she looks like herself. So yeah, I'm really very impressed by that. So we see Bill packing up his quarters because, as we know from the end of the last episode, because Galactica is literally about to fall apart at the seams. They're abandoning ship. They're going to go live on the base star, which it sucks, but what else are you going to do?
Yep.
But I love that even as everything is falling apart, he's still got moving boxes and big labels that slapped on the side that says Admiral's Quarters, Base Star, Deck 74.
Yep. I thought that was pretty funny too.
But he didn't have tape because he has to do that thing with boxes where you fold the flaps over that one is under the other, so it
can
stays
make
closed.
adhesive labels, but we can't make Scotch tape.
We can't make packing tape. I know, it's kind of weird. But yeah, again, more flashbacks here. 6 playing Baltar like a fiddle, which are really
something that I thought was kind of funny, I guess, was some of the flashback stuff, particularly with Baltar, because you see vehicles.
Yeah.
Like because he's riding in a limo.
Right.
And the funny thing for me, because they always make some sort of tweak, is that the vehicles don't get tweaked at all. Like that's just a Lincoln.
They just filmed it driving down the street in Vancouver. It's no big deal.
It's just a Lincoln driving through, and it's so because like paper, we have the trimmed edges. Like there's always some, like the phones have like this extra thing at it. There's always a little bit of something.
Right.
But for these scenes, I don't know if it was like, well, we're done and we need to do these flashbacks and we need to do them like on site because we don't have time or budget to build
Right. It's a
stuff.
smart part of the story, so we don't have to go
So
overboard.
I think it could have just been that, but it was
Yeah.
just something visually that I thought was interesting. Like it's the one time that I noticed that I mean, it has happened before, but it was like one big thing where it was just like, here's something that's just straight from our world, just dropped onto screen without any modification. So
Right.
I know it's a weird note, but it was just something.
No, it's cool. I like it. So yeah, we're back in the present. Kara is trying to math out the notes. She's trying to take the notes from Hera's little dots that spell out the song, and she's trying to turn them into coordinates and somehow, and she's just not really knowing what to do. Back on the colony, which is where the Cylons live, is just absolutely fantastic. It's almost like a bird of prey when you look, because it's in an accretion disk of a naked singularity, which is very Star Trek talk.
Yeah.
But it just looks incredible. And then we see our pal Rick Worthy, who's been a guest on our show, as Simon the Doctor, just acting the hell out of like, well, I got to cut this little girl's head open to find out this thing or that thing. And
yeah, no, he does a great job of being just like this very detached psychopath.
Yeah, absolutely. We get a great scene, Adama walking down the hallway, where we get a real life father and son. So his son, Boliomos, who is of course Hot Dog, who is now a single dad to the child that was his and Callie's that we didn't know was his. And I don't think we even saw him after that big reveal happened a couple of episodes ago, but
he popped in once or twice.
Right.
There was a shot with him in the cockpit doing something.
Yeah,
in, like,
but it's the first time we see we see what's the kid, Nikki, the little baby.
Yeah, this is the first time we see Nikki in a hot minute.
Yeah.
So.
And looking at that wall, because all the pilots are taking the photos because they're gonna take them with them. So something about seeing Hera in a photograph with Athena on the wall, something just breaks in him, and he says, it's like he just is not going to let it go. So he marches to where Kara is. She's sitting there with Sam, and he's like, first of all, he says, well, I heard that Baltar tested your blood and you're whatever. And she's like, yeah, I saw my body on Earth and I burned it. I don't know what the hell I am. And he says, hey, first of all, he says, I got to ask Anderson a question. Can you plug him in? And she moves and he puts a hand on her shoulder and he says, I know what you are. You're my daughter.
Yeah. No, that's,
and I was like,
pretty powerful.
That was pretty good. That was, he just loves her so much. And with all that they've been through,
it's Bill Adama is a testament to like good family bond, even though there's struggle, even though there's tension, because like he and Lee fight all the time,
right?
And and Kara's just a shithead most of the time.
Big time.
There just isn't a better way to say it. She just is.
Yeah. She's nobody that you would want to know. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. And if you ever like, oh well, I could fix her, that is the word that all of her other relationships have thought the same, and that's how they ended.
There are a few smart men in Earth that didn't ever say there's a woman I can fix, and we're always wrong.
But the thing with Bill is that he's like, he may like react in the moment and have like a freak out moment, throw paint against the wall, but especially with his family, when push comes to shove, that man is like the most loyal father.
Period. Yeah.
Like period. Yeah. And he sees the crew of Galactica as his children in a way. And I think that was my read of what not broke, but like galvanized him in that scene in the hallway, was because what Hot Dog said was like, oh, I'm taking pictures of these pilots so we don't forget them. And he was like, oh, there's more pictures on the wall. He's like, yeah, we don't remember who they are. Like,
right.
They could be, relatives of pilots who died or people who we've lost, and
right.
we just don't know who they are anymore. And I think that's what got to Bill, was just this idea of like, there is one person who I can save from that fate.
Right.
And damn it, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think that's what got to him, was like, we've lost so much. And to the point where like we don't even remember who we've lost. We've lost so much.
Right.
And he was just like, not again.
Right. Not again. We can't lose another student. Yeah. Not again. That's a teacher from Spider-Man. Not on a field trip. Not again.
Yeah.
one big thing, and we're winding down through the end of the episode, but one big thing, Sam does get a flashback. We just see Sam sitting there in the pool, and then they flash back to him in the locker room in the past, because of course, he was a professional athlete, and he's being interviewed by some bimbo from CNN, and she's like, well, if you don't get to hoist the cup before your career is over, you're going to be heartbroken. He's like, I love this. He says, look, that's all great or whatever, but what I really care about is the perfect shot, the perfect blot, achieving perfection. And I'm like, his destiny was always to become a Robbie the Robot hybrid plugin, where he runs things because he's all beep, 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 doing math stuff. So how bizarre that his destiny was to get shot in the back of the head and then have all his memories come spilling out and then have an aneurysm where the only way to save him is to plug him into a living computer. And then that's ultimately what he does. It's just, they just brought it all back around again.
Yep.
So we have some more flashback. We jump forward with Lee, and he gets home after a long night of drinking, and there's a pigeon in his apartment, and we're all just like, what? Where is he coming home from, and what's he muttering about?
Yeah, I was trying to figure out what was going on there. And I didn't go do some research, so that's on me. But my read on that scene of him coming back drunk was it was after Zach died.
Oh, I thought it was the next morning after the way we see the night wraps up, because he's wearing the same clothes.
There was that. So I guess that would make more sense. But for just the way that he was behaving, it almost made me think that was after Zach died. And he was just
could have been
stumbling in drunk and just like,
right,
everything's gone to shit and there's a pigeon flying around inside
right.
the house.
Speaking of shit.
Yeah, exactly.
So this is Bill's deal. He and Starbuck, there's a bunch of people. I don't know why there's a bunch of people on the flight deck. Do we know that?
They're prepping to leave.
Oh, they're prepping to leave. That's right, because the ship's being evacuated.
They're like moving stuff and organizing things. So everybody's on the deck just like getting crap ready.
Right. And so I found out where the packing tape was. He had one big roll because he and Kara take a big red roll of packing tape and put a line down the middle of the flight deck. And he gives this great speech, and he said, we found out where the little girl is because they got that information from Sam. And it's funny how you see the rumor mill going around the ship because they're talking about it in sickbay. They're talking about it.
Yeah, that happens like
pilot's ready room.
During this speech that kind of gets
right. And he's like, we know where the little girl is who's been abducted recently. And if we're going to take the whole ship to go get her. If I can't get enough people, I will, lead a Raptor assault force with whoever wants to join me. And he said, anybody who wants to go starboard. Anybody who doesn't want to go port. And people start moving, and Laura has now hobbled down there. She's like, I'm going with you. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
But a bunch of people, all of our regulars go over except Baltar. Baltar is still standing with his acolytes, because the other part of this episode is he was having arguments with Lee about, I want my people to have a seat at the table, because the government now is composed of ship captains. The quorum is not the quorum anymore, because it doesn't make any sense anywhere. There is no Pycon or Caprica or whatever it is. Those are colonies that haven't existed for several years, and they never will again. So he's like, we're a group, we want representation. Lee's like, well, I'm not going to welcome your group to the table because I don't trust you. You're a scumbag. And he's like, well, I can't pass Lee's altruism test. And he's like, all right, tell me one time you ever did anything that didn't line your own pockets or get you laid. Basically, that didn't benefit you in any way. And he's like, well, I wouldn't trust me either. Like, so it's like he's realizing that maybe this is not the destiny for him, but what is the destiny for him is poor Caprica 6, who still is wearing that stupid cocktail dress even now. Who wears clothes like that in space anyway? Don't you think it would always be cold on the ship that you'd want to be wearing a jacket?
That's head Caprica still, isn't it?
No, we're talking about Caprica, the corporeal one, the one who was going to have Saul's baby.
Yeah,
is on the flight deck.
I'm just getting it mixed up with what she's wearing later, which is not that. So
she always wears that red cocktail dress. Oh my God, we don't. Yeah. Well, and then but that's in the next episode.
The red one all the time. That's different,
right? Odd costuming note, and this happens with the chief as well. Is that Lee is wearing your outfit without rank insignia? Makes sense. He's no longer part of the military. Why is he wearing the jacket? Why doesn't he just wear what he always wears? I don't get it. And the same thing, the chief is wearing what I'm wearing, which is the BDUs with no rank insignia, because he's been stripped of rank after basically participating in letting Boomer escape. So,
Yeah.
but gets let out of the prison cell because
They need it.
now it's all hands. Why isn't he wearing something else? So I don't know. It's weird. It's weird costuming stuff, which
It's
with always drives me nuts.
leftover costumes. They're just like,
Leftover
you're
costumes.
gonna wear it because you wore this at the beginning of the show, and we gotta have you wearing it towards the finale
They
because
got to take it off the rack. And that's pretty much the end of part one. So, any additional thoughts about part one before we break into the 2-part finale?
Something of note that I thought was really cool was one of the first people to try to cross the line to say "I'm coming with you," other than Saul, because Saul is just ride or die.
He's eternal, ride or die. Yeah.
But the very next person is Doc Cottle.
Right. Right. And Bill shuts him down.
And Bill walks over to him and says, he basically, it's like, I appreciate the sentiment, but you're the only doctor we've got. You need to stay with the fleet. And
he calls him by name. He says, go back, Sherman, which I was like, wow.
Yeah. And you just see Cottle's, like, his whole, like, he just collapses in a
He
way.
just deflates. He's like, because I want to do my thing and I want to, but yeah.
But then
and Bill's right, because
Bill is completely right. And
there's still going to be 38,000-ish people who are staying. And they need a physician. He's the best one. He can't be the only one, but he's got to be one of the few.
I'm sure that he's trained some new ones since then, but like he is the most experienced doctor, and it's like they need you.
Yeah, because Bill says right in his speech, he says, don't have any illusions. There's a real good chance we're not coming back from this one.
Yeah.
But he's going because they need to try. They need to try.
Yeah,
they need to try.
He doesn't straight up say it's a suicide mission, but he's like, it might be.
He just dances around it. And let's face it, it's kind of suicide-y, but they do have a mission, and that's when we get into Daybreak parts 2 and 3, which aired at the same time on March 20th of 2009. Survivor count 39,406. It goes way
it drops
down
after that. Oof.
Yeah. Again, it's Michael Reimer and Ron D. Moore with the directing and the writing. Adama leads Galactica's final battle and rescues Hera from the Cylon colony. Starbuck draws upon the meaning of Hera's musical notes to lead the fleet to a habitable world. The fate of the fleet and its relationship to modern-day Earth is revealed, which Peter has thoughts about. But we'll get there. Yes. So we're back into flashbacks, and we get one of the more unconventional. We have Bill. So Bill's storyline is still this civvy job he's going to take, but he's out to a strip club with Saul and Ellen.
That was such a strange choice.
It's a weird one, and of course it's a TV strip club where none of the women are actually naked. But what are you going to do?
Yeah, just swimsuits basically. But
yeah, but it's funny because Saul's like, so what? You take an hour of this polygraph, and then you have this super cushy job, and you don't have to stand watches and do all this military crap anymore. And he's like, all right, well, tell me you do it. Crickets. Yeah, I fracking knew it, and blah, blah, blah. But then, or that might happen a little bit later, but then he says, yeah, fine, I'll do it. And he stays there. And Ellen kind of works her way back in, and it kind of, there's a little bit more interplay. Yeah. But yeah, I wrote Bill, Ellen, and Saul doing shots to the strip club. It's not on my Battlestar bingo card.
Nope, I completely forgot about that when I went.
Oh my god!
I was like, oh, this did happen. Whoops.
Right. And then we get all of the flashback scenes of this are a little saucy, because then we get Adama, or we get over with the Adama boys plus Kara. And there's a political debate going on, and then it turns into a debate about Bill because at this point Lee and Bill were not on speaking terms. So it's pretty intense. And they drink with Zach until Zach pushes out, and then Kara's like, it's time for shots, and I'm like, dude, just leave. just please leave. Do not spend any more time with this trouble woman, the succubus. It's gonna be bad news. Laura goes out on a date with a guy who was one of her students back in the day, who's, by the way, pretty hunky, and yay, Laura. But even she's like, yeah, this is my rock bottom. I'm not going to do this kind of thing ever again. And then she turns around and makes a phone call to her friend who works for Adar and says, well, let Adar know I'll I'll be on this campaign.
Yeah, that's a little
And
bit
that's
later in the episode, but yeah, that's
right.
that's a continuation.
Yeah, because we're kind of getting the flashback stuff kind of out of the way. Really could have done without the end part of the bar thing where Bill is sitting in the alley and pukes on himself. Could have done without that. And then he kind of gazes up at the sky like a crazy man. Hey, we've all been there. It's been an awfully long time since I threw up while drinking, but if it happens outside, you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Oh, now Laura's last interaction with Cottle, I didn't think he was going to crack until the end. When she says, just go light a cigarette and go out there and grumble, because he's like, well, and then he kisses her hand and walks and probably goes out and lights a cigarette and grumbles.
Or grumbles and cries while smoking a cigarette. Who knows?
Right, exactly. Because that was a very complicated relationship. He was caring for her because she had cancer from the beginning of the show, which got cured and then came back, like in a soap opera.
Yeah.
So we're going through the paces of everybody revealing their piece of the mission. So Hilo is briefing as Raptor Wrangler. She says, well, this is going to be really bad. The flying's going to be really crazy. And so it's a volunteer mission, and everybody sitting in there raises their hand. And he goes, I like the line. He says, that's my Raptor Wranglers, always looking for new and interesting ways to get killed.
Yeah. And then we also get back like a whole bunch of mutineers who were in prison for a while.
We get Racetrack and Skulls back for a minute.
Not long, but yeah.
Yeah, I wrote, and then this was my note. Chief also still wears the uniform, but like Lee, no rank, go find another shirt, dude. Because Adama's leaving, he hands command of the fleet over to Hoshi, who was one of the only survivors from Pegasus, because he was one of the officers on the CIC in Pegasus back in the day. And Lee handles over the presidency to Romo Lampkin, which great choice. I love that guy.
Wild.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting.
Wild.
And the very last Raptor is closing, and Baltar's getting on it. Baltar and those other two guys are getting on it. And then at the last minute, Baltar makes his big play, and he says, he's with his acolytes, and he says, sorry, Paula. I wrote, sorry, Paula, I'm just not that into you. He says, Paula, he says, I don't belong to you. I never belonged to you. You conscripted me, and I'm giving them back to you. I'm out. And he hops over, and he locks eyes with Lee's, and Lee tosses him a rifle, and he's like, you're one of us now, dude.
Yeah, it's such a strange scene. It works,
I know.
But it's such a strange scene.
Yeah. So in Caprica is going to be there. They're all suited up and stuff. Caprica is still wearing her cocktail dress because she's wearing a tack vest, but there's no sleeves on her shirt. So I'm like, well, that's not.
She does have like legged pants though, because you see
right. So she's wearing a little bit more like summertime in the Hamptons kind of outfit. But I'm like, put on some real tactical gear where like even Starbuck is wearing a t-shirt underneath, even though she's showing off her big arms. I love seeing super briefly the return to the Galactica Museum in the Port Landing Bay, which is still intact after all this years.
Yeah.
Like
it does, like things happen there later, but like I do think it's kind of neat later in the episode when the Cylons do invade. You have classic Cylons in the midst.
Oh my God, I was flipping over that. Absolutely love that stuff. I wrote, so Bill, they're about ready to hit the button and make the jump, and Bill gives another one of Bill's speeches. A school kid should learn this. This will be her last. She will not fail us. We will not fail her, of course.
And this is back on CIC, and hilariously, they've got Sam all plugged in up top.
They had to move him to the upper
balcony.
But they're all looking down on everyone else.
But you see like Bill moving like the pipes, and he's just like,
with the goo on his hands.
So gross.
I know. Why is everything so gooey? It takes you back to the episode in season 1 where Kara has to
dig out the Raider,
learn how to fly one of the alive Cylon Raiders, and everything's goop.
Yeah, we get this scene where it's like Bill's just like, man, it's not too late to flush him out the airlock, is it? And you get one of Saul's like weird like laugh.
Right, exactly.
Like he's not laughing out loud, but he's like laughing with his mouth closed, and it's just It's one of these just like, Saul, you're just oh man. You got a sense of humor on you, dude. Uh,
Oh my
I
God.
mean, the two of them have been through shit, so it totally makes sense. Like my
Yeah.
friends and I can make dark humor jokes like that too, but it's just really funny seeing that get brought out right at the end. It's like we might die, and what are we going to want to do? We're gonna make shit jokes at each other across the pool
Right.
table. So,
Laugh away the pain. And so the jump happens and they arrive at the colony. What a great sweeping. And again, you see the colony from this great distance and it looks like a bird of prey. So little
yeah,
tendrils and arms coming out.
it
And we get
it
this
kind of looks like a
incredible fight scene. Oh my God, with
yeah.
all of the artillery raining down on Galactica and it's just lighting up. Because again, it's not like in Star Trek where they have shields and all this different stuff. It's like when something hits you, it just hits you. And so there's explosions and
Yeah.
you see the big turret guns and those are firing, but eventually some of those get blown up and the ship is just
Yep.
collapsing around them.
Another quick thing to note is that when we saw Caprica in the hallway, Baltar shows up, and then they both see their hallucinations together.
Right,
There's
exactly. So now they're having shared
Head
hallucinations.
6 and
Yeah.
Head Baltar are both there, and they're just like, "You can see that? You can see that? What?"
Yeah, I know. And there's another postscript when we get to the end
Oh, yeah.
about those two of those
Yeah.
that I think we're going to talk about here. But so they're firing. Sam is able to he's able to hack in and shut down the colony so all the guns stop. And then I wrote is prepare for ramming speed because the ship Galactica just buffaloes its way in to the side of the colony, a la the end. One of the only like cool, exciting parts of the terrible Star Trek Nemesis movie is when the Enterprise decides to ram the enemy vessel
Ram Scimitar,
and,
yeah.
and jam it on
Also,
in there.
right
Yeah,
before this, when they start, all of the Raptors do a like short distance FTL jump from inside the museum hangar deck, and you just see the hull just blow open.
right. Yeah, with the effect, kind of like we saw at the end of the last episode when Boomer was escaping and did a jump right next to the ship, ripped off the side of it. So, yeah, it's always what Ron Moore complained about in relation to Voyager certainly during the brief time that he worked there, because he was on staff for a couple of weeks, the beginning of season 6 after DS9 ended, is that Voyager always looked like it rolled off the showroom, even though they've been through getting blown up. They always like, well, as long as we got the replicator, we can make new, panels in the hull and we can make new, hull plates and stuff. And so Galactica, there's nothing to ever fix it. So it starts in the beginning looking fine. And by the end of this, it looks like it's actually gone through a meat grinder.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so bad. So yeah, we do know Racetrack and Skulls because they were the ones that did the jump and found the place, but they're part of that team. And she said, well, let's make our nukes hot just in case you run into trouble. And then Skulls is like, hey man, do you remember this one time and a meteor hits the screen and everybody in there is dead? Yeah. So now they're just floating, but we'll come back to that.
This is quite literally Chekhov's gun.
Yeah, exactly. I, like you, love seeing. I wrote Racetrack and Skulls Catch a Case of the Dead, but more on that later.
Yeah.
The Salt team I wrote rappels down, but repels down, and then all the Centurions that came from the Baystar had the big old red stripe on them. It's one of the figures I have over there too.
Yeah.
I love that red stripe is it's a beer that's like specific to like Puerto Rico or something like that. Like it's somewhere in the Caribbean there's red stripe beer. Maybe Jamaica.
I have a feeling that because of how Battlestar works, I think it's probably a biblical reference.
Oh, the red stripe. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, tell me.
I think it's a Passover reference where the Jews put blood over their doors to prevent the angel of death from coming to kill the firstborn in Egypt. So I have a feeling that this is a reference to that.
Interesting.
So that those Cylons do not get killed by the angels of death that are the humans.
You mean like Kara and her people?
Yeah.
Since she is the angel of death.
Quite. Yeah, pretty much. So I can't say for sure because I didn't go read any behind the scenes, but I have a feeling that's probably where it came from.
Okay, I like it. So anyway, while everything's blowing up, Simon he's still got a gizmo stuck in Hera's ear, and then Boomer standing there, and she's like, "You're really gonna just keep plotzing along while everything's blowing up around us?" And he's like,
"Yep.
Well, I mean, whatever. I mean, despite this, we have more people, and they may have the initiative, and when it comes down to it, it's all about numbers." And then he gets the Van Damme, where Boomer comes up behind him and goes, "Snap!" And I wrote, "Sorry, Simon." And so, yeah, Boomer decided to switch sides again, and she grabs Hera and runs off. So let's see what I wrote down. So Sam is back in doing his thing, running the ship, and everything's like he's jammed too much power through, and the chief is like, all right, Sam, you got to back down off the ACS. You're going to blow out the blah, blah, blah. And he's like, rivers in the stream, blah, 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 blah. Lay off the ACS. You bet, Galen.
Yeah.
It's just, I dig on that.
It's well done.
And then we get your hallucination scene, but we get Six and Baltar having a moment in real life, and they're finally kissy face, which is the first time he's been back together with her since the miniseries. And so true love put together. Boomer catches up with the assault team, which is Starbuck plus Hilo and Athena, and they give her the baby back. They give her Hera back, and she has a cool flashback, which is weird because it happens after the fact that she gets blown away. Because then they take the baby, and Boomer's like, yeah, I know this is kind of the end of the road for me. And Athena's like, you are correct. And then she gets this flashback to just prior to the miniseries where they're like, she's getting dressed down by Saul and Bill in his quarters, and Bill's like, get your shit together. You got one more day to make the trap, otherwise I'm washing you out and you're out of here. And she says, I'll pay you back someday, I really mean it. So that's what this was.
That's what it was,
which I thought was pretty cool. That was pretty cool. I wrote they have that long scene in sickbay where you just see all the triage of people gushing blood wounds and walking through and putting an X on the forehead of the dead ones. I probably could have
like Pearl Harbor and any other thing where you see medical triage happen. It's rough, but
pretty rough. But now all of our people are making their way back onto the ship because they have Hera, so they're all ordered back. There's a cool scene where Baltar is shooting and he downs his own Cylon and he keeps shooting it. But then Lee's about to come around the corner. He says, friendlies. Six has to point his gun up and keep him shooting. And Lee walks by and says, Doc, you did good. I was like, aw. Then we jump into this cool sequence because while all that's open, one of the Doros walks up behind and shoots Hilo, and Hera runs off. And now we see Laura wandering from sickbay. Then Athena's chasing, and then you've got Baltar and Six, and it's all interspersed with all of the different visuals that we've seen throughout the series related to the Opera House. And it's all funnels down to seeing the vision and then seeing what's really happening. And Six and Baltar go into a room and seal it, and they turn around, then there's Hera standing there, so they have to pick her up, and they say we have to go into the Opera House, which is the CIC, which by that time Cavill and his Cylons have gotten there, but all you see is carnage as the human Cylons are getting shot in the face and getting blown up, and you see Galactica people strewn all over the place.
And by the time they get in there, it's really interesting because the final five are standing at the balcony up top.
Yeah, so they look up top, and the five are looking down, and then you flash back to the whited out visions of them, which is what Xena, Warrior Princess, saw. Number 3 saw back in season 3. So now, but it's at the very there's one Cavill left. He breaks loose. He grabs Hera with the gun. He says, "I'm walking out of here because she's the key to our survival." And now Baltar gets he takes the mic for some monologue and magic. He says, I see angels. He does this whole speech about, God wants one thing and there are visions out there. We can't explain stuff that's happening and yada, yada, yada. And then Saul steps in and because Cavill says, well, I'm taking her because by cutting her apart is the only way we're ever going to be able to save my people. And Saul says, we'll give you back resurrection. All 5 of us have to stick our hand in the goo, and we each have one of the floppy disks that you need to make resurrection, and we'll download it back to the colony. And so this results in one of my favorite sequences.
Oh man, this is tough. Yeah,
it's all going to work out so great. In between that, we go to a commercial break and come back, and I did like the Viper recovery deck sequence that we saw. So we saw all the Vipers coming in. One of them is smoking, and I like the flashy truck thing. That is obviously they're like, you got to land past me. That you never really explained exactly what that all looks like. So I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, so all of our final 5 are going to stick their hands in the goo and they'll start to download whatever it is. So we get the great Tori trying to cover her ass line. Well, let's remember that when we stuck our hands in there, we might end up seeing some stuff that we don't like, but we're all Cylons, right? So we're all going to be cool. And I'm like, bitch, not for you.
Yeah.
Because what happens, everybody sticks their hands in and everybody gets like a flash of like, here's a thing that I did and here's a thing that you did. And then Tori starts to get a flash of the thing that she did, which was murdering Callie. And when Chief gets this, he pulls his hand out and he looks at her and he just hands around her neck like Homer Simpson choking Bart and picks her up like a rag doll and snaps her neck like a twig. And the human Cylons freak out. They start shooting again. They all get blown away. Cavill caps himself and they go right back to the colony goes, no, now we got to attack him again. Why didn't Sam, at this point, was Sam like incapacitated that he couldn't just shut him down again? I'm assuming that's what it is. Things were moving so fast.
Maybe. It was a little unclear as to why he wasn't able to do that. So.
But off in the minutia, you've still got the one raptor floating around, which is Racetrack and Skulls, and they're all dead. But they hit another rock, and her hand falls down, and it lands on the button that launches all the nukes. So, like 8 nukes. Nukes are always so hilarious in space because you saw this at the end of the first Avengers movie. Because one nuclear device goes through the portal, and then it hits Thanos' ship, and it creates this crazy explosion.
Yeah.
And so, even though the colony is tens of the magnitude of like 100 larger than Galactica, these 6 nukes send it into complete annihilation mode when they hit, and that's a very cool sequence. And then the sequence that we get is the whole Kara's coordinates thing, where she's like, Bill says, "Get us out of here, jump the ship," and
I don't know.
Kara's like, I don't know how to do that, and she said, "Just do something." And she has a flashback dreaming through all of everything that she's figured out about the numbers, and so she starts punching it into the cast. Do you see the keyboard was one of those little white keyboards we all had in our computers in the 90s?
Yep.
Click, click,
oh
click.
Yeah, I definitely I use number pads still. I was like, that's familiar.
Yeah, right. But she punches it in and she hits the jump and the ship goes, and then we go to commercial, or we go to one more flashback or whatever it is. But so the ship jumps and we get a sequence when it arrives that goes for maybe 10 seconds or longer, where you just see the ship shuddering because it jumped without being prepared for it. So, but you see it kind of shuddering like it got hit by a wave in the ocean, and more things blowing out and stuff flying all over the place. And I love it at all the way, and then stuff is blowing up on the inside. But even at the end of it, the engines still come back on. That's how tough that ship is. Yeah, but it can still fly.
It literally like ripples.
I know it does the worm.
Yeah, it ripples as like just so many interior like support struts just break.
Yeah. And it was hard. It was in some ways as hard to watch as my beloved Connie 2, the Enterprise 1701, blowing up in The Search for Spock, which is my favorite Star Trek film, and it's my favorite space vehicle. But it was tough. And then Saul has a great line that says she's got ruptures throughout her structural membranes. She broke her back. She'll never jump again. So they're going to be where they're going to go. You get this beautiful shot of the ship flying with still panels and stuff flying over it, over what looks like a very familiar space body, which pulls back to then reveal our little blue ball, Sol 3, what we call Earth. They made it. Mm-hmm. They actually made it. But things are going to get a little crazier after the commercial break here, because we jump forward 12 hours. Guys. Yeah, the rest of the fleet shows up, but we've got a recon party, and we're sitting. We've got everybody wearing what I'm wearing. This is what everybody wears from now on for the rest of the show. Yeah, everybody's wearing
uniform
BDUs.
Goes away.
Yeah, but you've got Hoshi shows up and he says, here's your stars back. I'm just a lieutenant now, which is funny because there's no military. As we learned, the military is dissolving. But Baltar is looking through and he says, well, we see these tribal nonverbal people walking with sticks, and he's like, well, can we breed with them? And
they honestly look like Neanderthals to me rather than Homo sapiens.
So you think it's even further back than
I think it's Neanderthalensis. But I could be wrong, but just based on the makeup and all that, that's what it looked like to me. Could be wrong.
Yeah, exactly. So I do love that Bill says human beings evolved naturally on a planet 1 million light years away. So they traveled 1 million light years in 4 years. FTL is a hell of a lot better than warp speed on the Enterprise,
Yeah.
because they never. I mean, the longest unit of measurement that got thrown around in Star Trek on a regular basis was the 70,000 light years that Voyager got thrown away into the Delta Quadrant. They were like, it's going to take us 75 years to get back if we fly at maximum warp and never stop. So I'm like, well, in 4 years you can travel a million light years. I will take FTL, twice on Sundays, because I mean, that's a lot of space they traveled.
Yeah.
Who knows how long that last jump was? But it's also inconsistent, because they say, well, they'd be like, we're trying to get to such and such, and I think 4 or 5 more plotted jumps we could get there. Like, how far can a jump be?
The range is unclear. Like, that is one of those things that's a little frustrating.
Yeah, exactly. So, they're obviously in Africa, which is cool, because you could see that even when they were in space, that when they were flying at Earth, the African continent was the majority of what we saw.
The origin point of humanity.
Yeah, exactly. So you got Lampkin and Hoshi. They're all standing around talking about, well, we can draw out lines for city in a day and blah, blah, blah. And then Lee says, no, I don't think so. And then it flashes to him walking with Bill. And he says, I think what we really need to do is break the cycle. I think we just need to throw away all the technology. Everybody gets a pack on their back and they can have some rations, but they're just going to go out and they're just going to live. They're just going to live, build a hut. No cities, no technology, no nothing. We're doing it all on our own, and so then back up on the ship, Bill saying, well, we're gonna set up camps all around this planet. Everybody's gonna get, we'll document everything. Everybody gets some food and provisions, and then Ellen is obviously the leader of Silence at this point, which she has been. She says, we're going to give the base star to the Centaurians. They're free, so they can leave. And then Ramsey says, what if they decide to come back in a couple of years and blow us all up? And she said, well, that's a chance, but I really feel like setting them free is going to break the cycle, and they can go have their own destiny. And Leoben says, well, all of us Cylons, we're all going to stay. And we're the same as y'all. We're just going to do this thing and we'll see what happens before we pass into God's hands. And I'm like, that's awesome. Mm-hmm. So now we get to the part where I get kind of a big tear up, is that the final fate of the fleet is they're gonna destroy it. They're gonna fly it into the sun. And Sam is gonna drive it, because there's no way to separate him from it. But Bill gets all suited up. He's in his flight suit. He's walking on an empty flight deck. He jury rigs the controls on one of the launch tubes, and he gets into a Viper, which bears his nameplate, Husker. And Viper, just like it was talked about at the beginning of the ship when they were abandoning it, they were going to let him fly the last Viper off. And you get it interspersed with him having this lie detector test for the civvy job he was going to take. Yeah. And he lasts for about 3 questions when they ask him, like, they're like, is your name Bill Adama? Are you in Colonial Fleet? Are you a Cylon? And he's like, well, we're just establishing a baseline. And he's like, no, I'm not a Cylon. He goes, have you ever stolen cash from a cash drawer? And he's like, you know what? F this. I'm out of here. I don't care how much money they're going to pay me to do this. I'd rather just finish out my crappy career on a crappy ship than sit here and have somebody question my word. And I know exactly what that feels like, because I lost a job over that a couple of years ago, because I had somebody trying to call me out, and it was a manager who had the guts for me. And you know what? It sucked that I did it that way, and I didn't do it in quite Bill's fashion, but I said, I'm not interested in having my integrity questioned. And that got me fired. You know what? I wasn't interested in having my integrity questioned, and I never will be. So it was worth not having that job anymore. I can tell you that much. So that really clicked with me. And we get an ongoing stream of stop your crying kind of moments. Yeah. Bill and Lee, Laura's about to die. Ellen and Ty, simultaneously the best and worst married couple you've ever met. but they got each other, which is all that in the end of it, all Ellen ever wanted. They say goodbye to the chief. He's going to form Scotland, because he said, I found this little island. It's in the Highlands. It's cold, and there's no people there. So actually, I guess he couldn't really be the first Scotsman, because he can't reproduce. So there must be people. Somebody must end up there eventually. Yeah. But anyway, he's the original Scot. He's the original Scotty. I guess it's amazing. Though obviously, I guess I'm tilting forward and revealing the end. But anyway, we'll get there. So Bill flies off for the last time. And it's just Lee and Starbuck, and they're talking, and they flash back to a scene where she says, the thing I'm the most afraid of is not being remembered. There's some awkward romantic stuff. Unfortunately, the glass gets broken and he leaves. Thank God. But that's before they all still remain friends after that, which is like, all right, fine. They put it behind it. That's good.
Mhm.
But Lee starts talking and saying, yeah, I want to explore and do all this stuff. And it's so exhausting. He turns around and Starbucks gone.
Yep.
So she really was that angel, that angel on their shoulder that was there to lead them to their end, which is what Leoben said about her in like episode 5 or 6 of the series. So
yep,
it all came back around. It's kind of crazy to think about. So
you have the same people working on it all the way through.
You have a story layout over 4 seasons. So so we see our characters start to wander off. We see Caprica and Baltar. He, muses about, hey, I know a little bit about farming, and he thinks of his dad, starts to cry, and she, wipes his tears away. And it's just like, there's just a lot of like, everybody's getting their direction.
Like Hilo and Athena and Hera going off.
Yeah.
Doing the same.
And then you see Hera, and she's wandering by herself, and she looks up in the sky, and then you get all this. Here's you get these long B-roll shots until we end up in Central Park in New York City, 150,000 years later. And I will never forget watching this in March of 2009, going, huh?
Yep.
Because in a million years, I never would have thought these people are our ancient ancestors from the stars, which is, if you listen to breaking down in the original show, which you and I may come back someday and talk about the original BSG. I would love to do that because I'm really due for a rewatch. But that is the premise of the original show, was that there may be ancient aliens that were the forefathers of the Aztecs or the Toltecs or the Mayans. What is their story? This is their story.
Yep.
Oh man! But we get a great Ron Moore. We get the voiceover of Caprica and Baltar, the head versions, who are alive 150,000 years from now and exist. So are they spirits as well? I don't really know what they are, but they're reading over the shoulder of a guy who's reading a Nat Geo article about mitochondrial Eve, which I believe was called Lucy, if I'm not mistaken.
Yep.
Which was the last common ancestor of all life on Earth. And the guy reading the magazine is Ron Moore.
Yep.
So nice cameo. So I wrote, yes, Head 6 and Baltar are ghosts or angels, and they're not tied to a particular person. So that's the end of the show.
Yep. Yeah. Well, it's not exactly the end, because the idea
that is right,
because it also ends with them looking and then being like, well, we broke the cycle, but did we? And then it pans over to like a television showing us building new robots.
And I was watching this with April, and she said, this was 2009, and now we're almost 20 years later, and look at AI and look at all the different stuff happening. And
yeah, we've got some stuff that's a little bit scarier than some of the things that the Cylons did in a way, not the same.
It tilts us closer to Skynet and the Terminator theories, but so I know you have thoughts. I'll conclude by saying I could watch this 3 or 4 times in a row. I love it so much. This is one of my favorite things out there, without a doubt, over the head of most Star Trek, which is, of course, my bread and butter. I love this, which is why I wanted to share how much I love this with everybody, not only on our Patreon, but also on our free feeds and our YouTube. So I love this. I won't say no notes, because there are weird little things, but the weird things are more in the flashbacks, which is like, flashbacks are really fuzzy anyway, because it's a memory, and who doesn't have fuzzy memories? And it just doesn't really matter. It's like, well, you didn't really look like that 10 years ago, but they got to do the best they can. So what are your thoughts? You said you had thoughts.
Yeah, so I generally like this, but there is some of it for me that is just a little bit unsatisfying.
Okay.
That's with me with a lot of different finales, because there's a lot of different moving parts, and it's hard to get everything to land. So don't take this as like, oh, I don't like the finale. It's more of just like, there's some things that just nag at me when I watch it. And so, like, one of the things that does kind of nag at me is just that this is the end of the Cylons, like of the skin jobs. Like, obviously we see the Turians go off and do their thing, but was Cavill's group this Cavill's group, was this the last of the Cylons? Are there actually still more of them out there? It's not really clear.
Yeah, and you don't really know what happens to those red stripes either.
Yeah.
Where do they go? What did they do? Did they go off and decide to kill other Cylons? I mean, was that their mission?
Yeah. I don't
Did
know.
they decide they needed to kill more skin jobs, or did it really break the cycle, you
Yeah.
know?
And again, that's not something that needs to have an answer, but it is a question
Right.
that's kind of just left there.
Right.
And so there is that. I honestly had mixed feelings about the flash forward to
Okay.
present day. Like, yes, it was something that was in the because I have watched a couple episodes of the original. I remember it being in the voiceover for like the intro of every episode.
Right,
What if?
exactly.
And da,
Yeah.
da, da. So like, there's something interesting about it, but there's also, and I know, like in our Star Trek show, I kind of complained about this a little bit with a Strange New Worlds episode. But there's certain things that, like, when we start to insert things into the past, that get a little funky with
Yeah.
how we understand how things panned out. Now, obviously, it's a long time ago, and our understanding of the past is different and evolves over time as we uncover things. But it's just one of those things that's like, yeah, it stretches my disbelief just a little bit.
Yeah.
So, but again, it's not bad, but there are just some things like, they still have some Raptors and there's still some space vehicles and technology that they hang on to for a little bit. And then it's like, okay, do we get rid of this? Like, we don't have cities, but we're.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. How much? But of course, they could only really have ships flying around it while they had fuel, and when the fuel was gone, and then the batteries died, and then over 150,000 years, all of those things would have
Not necessarily
fossilized, and
I mean, it wouldn't necessarily fossilize or rust because, something in space has to be, protected from all.
No, I mean, I was more referring to the stuff on the ground. So it's like, if I have if Bill had his Raptor, eventually it ran out of fuel, and then the batteries died, and it would just rust and fall apart over thousands
Not
of years.
necessarily rust, though, depending on the location. So that's the sort of thing that I mean, like when you do something in the past, because like several million years is enough time for something like that to disappear. But we have
Right.
we have ships that have been underwater, wooden ships that have been underwater for thousands of years that we've pulled up. So it's like,
Right.
I don't know.
It could be a big discovery. Well, of course, and I know that it was never the desire of oops, I dropped something. It was never the desire of. Oh, sorry about that little tech issue. But anyway, you were saying?
Yeah, so just some of the technology stuff is a little weird. And then in terms of surviving. But I think one of the weird things for me was at the end, and you may not find this as strange as I do, but there was a moment with Head 6 and Baltar at the end where 6 looks at him and it's like, well, it's kind of, it's God's will or something to that effect. And he goes, he doesn't like to be called that. And I was like, what are we talking about here?
Exactly.
So it's like we're pulling.
It was the classic DS9 red herring, which,
Yeah.
Thompson and Weddle and Ira, and then Ron always liked to sneak in little things like, well, this could be something if we wanted it to be something, or it could be nothing.
Yeah. So it's just one of those, like, because during the whole show, you have kind of the battle between like the polytheism of like the colonies and then the monotheism of the Cylons. And so, like, there's this weird mix. And so, like, yeah, for me, it's a little strange, just the way that they do it. But again, that's my take on it. That's not how everyone feels about it. So
totally get it. So, wow, and incredible stuff. And this show has, through a lot of aborted, like, we're going to bring it back in a new show. Right now, the show this is the end of, plus the other two films, TV films we'll talk about. This has just kind of been the end of this. And of course, there are many of the stars who are out there who are still talking about their time on the show. Katie Sackhoff has a great show, much like ours, where she is rewatching it right now and with one of her collaborative partners and talking about it.
Really deep.
And this is really one of the most beloved makes of anything in sci-fi in the last 25 years that I can think of. That people say was really done right, and it really holds up.
It's one of the few like reimaginings of a classic TV show that one does its own thing. So it's not like
Right.
it's not like a bastardization of the original, because there's some remakes that just do that, and it's like you made the original but worse.
Yeah, you kind of like we get with Kurtzman's Star Trek. Wink,
Yeah,
wink, wink.
yeah, but like so it's like it's a reimagining, and so it captures like some of the idea of the original, but it's definitely its own thing.
Yeah,
And so like, because I know some people who really really like the original who don't like the new one. I've seen parts of the original, I've seen all of this one, and like they are their own thing, and there's different things to like about both. And so I
right.
think that's one of the things about this particular remake that's just very different from, like, say, Land of the Lost, or uh there was another show, like any of the, like the He-Man redos or things like that, where it's like where
Sure.
you've got like they're redoing it, but it's just it's not different or better. and
Right.
and this one is different and better in different ways. So you, I wouldn't say, oh, it's superior to the original, because the original is its own thing,
Right.
but there's just something about the reimagining that just there's this realism in it that's just way different than a lot of other sci-fi. So
Yeah.
it takes a classic property, and unlike this is gonna be a shots fired moment. Unlike newer Star Trek, right? It takes the optimistic view of the old 1970s show and kind of flips it on its head in a way that's
Yeah.
not entirely disrespectful to the original.
Right.
And
Right.
that's something that's really freaking hard to do. And while there are
Yeah.
a couple missteps here and there, because everybody does that, but the show overall does a really, really interesting, grittier reimagining of just the
Right.
concept of Battlestar. And so
Right.
it's just really cool.
Well, and part of me absolutely never wants to see another Battlestar. I don't really, because all it'll really be is like it's like and I hate to put it right back to what you said about newer Star Trek, and then also thinking about the people that made this. It's trying to top what DS9 did in
Yeah.
Star Trek. I just don't think it can ever be done. I
For
don't think they can
the
ever
part.
achieve that level of depth and quality,
Yeah, I mean,
you know,
if you did
in the
like
way that they did
if you
it.
did like a completely different take, like if you leaned more towards the 1970s vision, you
Yeah,
might be able to get away with another version,
right.
but I think it would be hard just because of,
Yeah,
one, how different the two are, but also like, cuz like Ron Moore's honors the old one a lot, like musically. Like another thing that I we didn't mention was when Bill does his final launch off of
oh,
Galactica.
the thing that gave me
It's the
chills.
old school Battlestar theme that's playing.
Which they played once earlier in the
They
show
played
in
it a
season
couple
2
times. Like,
with the mockumentary
yeah,
documentary that
they
Deanna
did it there,
did.
but they also it showed up a couple other times. But like this was like that kind of slow, kind of melancholic take on the classic Battlestar theme, and that was really well done.
Yeah,
So like, but like if you were to remake this again, you would have to just take it would have to be a completely different take.
right,
Like you couldn't use like the same gist of like, oh, the kind of gritty horror sort of thing that this one does a lot and does well.
right,
Because otherwise it would just be like, well, we're just doing the same thing but worse.
right. Yeah, exactly.
You just can't do it.
Exactly. Whew, heavy stuff. So, everybody, thanks for tuning in. And again, thank you to our wonderful patrons who are getting this first. But then also, and again, this is one of the final regular episodes of this show, and we're glad that we're able to share it with our regular audience. And so if let's say you're tuning in for the first time, you can find everything obviously at patreon.com/secret friends unite. You can pop in, try us out for a week for free, sample some of our shows.
Go listen to the
You
early
can get your
Battlestar.
first month at 50% off. You get all of Battlestar. Your first month is 50% off. And you stay on board for as little as $2 a month. So that is a ton of entertainment. All of our shows come out early there. And we have covered all kinds of TV, movies, video games, all kinds of different stuff in that. So we would absolutely love to have you. But with that, we are saying goodbye to our friends in Colonial Fleet. Peter, so say we all.
So say we all.